All right, here we are. We are back, Crew Call with the Scooters. And again, super excited because we have Mia Tarducci, who is an incredible artist based in Pittsburgh, globally known. We love her. And we were able a couple years ago to shoot in her studio. Like when she was moving in, we're like, this is going to be the best background ever. So we love you. Thank you so much for being with us today to talk about what is going on in your life. So
what is going on?
well, let's start first with something pretty simple. Talk to us a little bit about the medium that you work in and what you do and what you're really known for, because you do some of the most beautiful work we've ever
Thank you. Thanks. So I'm an oil painter, and I have several different series, but probably the series that I'm best known for are these really additive, highly colorful abstracts that sort of get balanced with negative space, which, so I include a lot of white in there, but even the white part's really built up. So it's like really additive work. There are other series that are less additive, and one series in particular I call the Floor series, and that's based on basically drops and things that have happened on my studio floor. And there was a whole, reason behind that and a whole process for having developed that series. But I really feel as though the two bodies of work, and there are other pieces too, but those two bodies of work really play off of each other because one sort of begets the other. And yeah, the other thing I'm known for is that the work tends to be really, really big. So I even at one point, at one point I had to put a hole in the side of the building, the studio that you guys were in, to extract a painting that was 7 feet by 24 feet and going down to Florida to a client there. So I left the hole in the building so that I could use it again. And I've actually used it like four times since. So it's been interesting. It's been a wild ride so far. So, and it's just getting a little weirder right now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It is weird. You have a couple people at home with you.
I have five. Yeah, I have my son, Jack, who's 13, my son, Sam, who's 16, my daughter, Sophia, who's 18, my daughter, Grace, who's 21, and I have her roommate from college, Alex, who's also 21. They were in New York City, and about 10 days ago, I just was like, they need to be out of New York. I just had this sense that they weren't safe. And so I got them home. I got them back to Pittsburgh, and because Alex was going to stay, and I was like, no way. Like, if you're staying, then Grace has to stay with you, which I didn't want because, I wanted her here. So I did convince her to come. So we have a full house.
How do you juggle everyone's schedules? I don't even understand how that works.
They're older, so they kind of juggle their own, which is nice. We try to schedule time to do family things and, projects. We did a coronavirus piñata challenge where we paired up in twos, and it was like 90 minutes. We had a time frame and everything, and it was fun. So it's something to sort of. I thought the idea was great because it's like, then we'll beat the heck out of it and candy will come out, and that's, like, I don't know, face your fears or something.
Right.
But yeah, so they've been great, actually. They've the girls are doing a documentary because they're trying to think of things to fill their time, and it should be interesting. It's actually very interesting.
We love that.
Yeah.
So, you're so many projects you get. People ask you to do work for them. Work for you. So what's work been like? We were talking to Jeff Swenson a couple hours ago, and we know he's yours, and we were talking to a friend, Jeremy Raymer, as well, talking about some of the balances happening in the art world right now. What are you experiencing?
Well, it's terrifying because, art is usually the first thing that goes when there's a crisis. I mean, there's not a lot of income for people to, you know, kind of pursue a commission or whatever.
Mhm.
I had a very large commission fall through after I had already received a purchase order, already had a
Mhm.
contract signed for it. And, you know, I made sure, this was probably like 2 weeks ago, I said, you know, is this a go? Because I need to invest in the stretcher bars for it and the materials, just even the basic materials. And I got the thumbs up. And so I went and, you know, spent $1,000 on just the stretcher bars. And then I guess it was 4 or 5 days later, they said it was canceled. So the problem with that is going through a broker and et cetera. The broker's not getting paid. They can't pay me. It's just you know, it's just a loss.
Right.
And in my case, you know, we were talking about a 6 foot by 10 foot piece, which isn't something that I can easily market elsewhere. So it's, you know, now I'm sitting on something that I don't know what's going to happen with it. It's just really disappointing. I have said to people though, you know, the nature of my business is such that it's always inconsistent and it's always a roller coaster. But, and it doesn't necessarily, the market usually doesn't interfere too much with what I do, but that's usually when it's sort of projected to be like a down market or whatever. And it's like people know in advance this is going to be a rougher economy. There still are winners in those rougher economies, and they spend money.
Right.
But this situation is so vastly different because it's so unknown what's going to happen, and it's affecting people across the board without discriminating, you know, in any way, shape, or form. So it's very, very scary to me to think about what's going to happen in the following months. And the other thing too is I don't have access to my studio because I'm not an essential business. So I did bring things home from my studio, but again, that's very inconsistent with how I normally practice. So I can't do a 10-foot painting in my house, you know? So I'm working on small pieces, but you know, there are no commissions lined up right now. I had probably 5 different things lined up right before this happened. And my hope is that those people who were interested before will be interested after, but you know, I mean, I'm not going to cry about it because there's so many people in far worse situations. I mean, I think about all of my friends in the restaurant businesses and the people, you know, from the chefs to the wait staff to the people bussing the tables and washing the dishes. Like, you know, and so many other industries, obviously, but that's the one that I think because I work with so many chefs and I work with so many restaurants, that really affected me. And I think, you know, we talked about Superior Motors. They had and you know, what's nice is I think in this time, I guess the silver lining would be that people are really trying to help one another and really do see these situations and these crises that are happening. Like they're real. Like these people that are working paycheck to paycheck or, you know, night to night waiting on tables, they no longer have that income at all. Right. And typically they don't have a ton of savings or other things to get them through these rocky moments. And, you know, this is something that nobody could have conceived of, right? So it's not something that we've ever thought to put a nest egg aside for. So the way that I felt like I could help with that situation, at least a little bit, was there is a GoFundMe for Superior Motors staff. And while I can't give thousands of dollars because I totally would, because I love these people, I thought if I donated small paintings, which I'll be working on, to anyone, you know, donating a certain amount or more, then that would be my contribution that I could do. But I mean, there's all kinds of creative ways that people are thinking of to be helpful, which I think is, you know, it just speaks to this community, really. You know, this Pittsburgh is a very tight community of people, and people really do support one another.
They really do. And Kevin's crew out there, I know you're tight with Braddock. What else
Yeah.
is going on out there in Braddock or around that Homewood area?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. What else is happening over there?
Yeah, in Braddock or in Homewood.
So I don't really know too much about Braddock per se, because my studio is in Homewood, and it's really pretty isolated in terms of what it is. It's just like that one big building, and we all kind of function within that, and we all sort of support. So my community, I would say, is more like that building, because there's a lot of makers in that building, and artists. There's an offshoot of Radiant Hall in that building, which I believe has something along the lines of like 30 artists between two spaces. And then there's ceramicists. There are small businesses like Urban Tree. And so that's really my community, is just the maker sort of world, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I know that this is profoundly impacting my community.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's I think we don't understand. I mean, we understand it because we're in it right now, just kind of getting through it with our clients and understanding what we need to do for them now. But when we look at this artist community and hearing mm-hmm. about commissions being dropped and hearing about things just stopping, especially with the servers and that whole front line of cooks and people that we just love so much.
Right.
Just like, you know, what do we need to do to make that make it better? And it is great that you're doing that GoFundMe, and anybody that would be able to donate and get a piece from you, I think would be amazing. We have a small piece, and it's like treasured. You know, it's that's me, you know, and I think that's incredible that you're doing that. What about your kids being at home? Is the school start? Is it online, or what's happening?
Yeah, so it's interesting because Grace and Alex are actually on spring break right now, and they attend mm-hmm. The new school in New York. So Parsons is part of the new school. And I'm not sure what that's going to look like for them. I know that, you know, they are trying to think of projects here in the home that they can do, that I think were on the list of things that they knew they had to do. So like I said, they're doing this documentary stuff, and I think it's going to be fascinating. Also just in terms of like, how do you create something like that in lockdown, basically, mm-hmm. right? So they're working on that, but the other three are it's still school, and they have classes. I think that Sophia, her classes seem to be set up all online like this, like they're group chats, mm-hmm. and they actually, but I think the boys their school is more like assignment driven, and so it's more independent learning. So I think every school is different, and they're coming up with the best ways that they possibly can to make sure that their students are still getting an education, which, you know, thankfully for me, I have kids who are self-motivated and independent that way and will do it. But I really feel for parents with younger children. Mm-hmm. You know, now you're thrown into, not only are you thrown into this quarantine, but now you're in the role of educator. Like, right. You know, there's so many people with so many things happening right now. I feel very fortunate in many ways that, you know, I have kids that are, you know, older, and they can do their own thing, and it's not such a burden, if you will, which sounds terrible. Right. It's not for me. In fact, it's just been kind of nice to have like family time and, you know, play games and do stuff like that when they don't have school.
When this all opens back up, when we're finally kind of what's your hope in terms of the art community or things that you're thinking about? Because artists always get very creative during these times. So even with the GoFundMe for Superior Motors and things like that. But are you talking to the people in your community in that building or other artists? Are you thinking about collectives or things of that nature for when this all breaks?
That's interesting. I haven't really spoken to a lot of different artists, only to just kind of commiserate and be like, hey, are you working from your house? And a lot of people are like showing images of them moving their studio practice to their homes. I think it is that in and of itself is such an adjustment that I don't know that we'll see too much right now because it's only been 2 weeks or whatever. But I think as artists become more acclimated to their new situation, I think we're going to start to see more and more interesting and creative ways to handle this and deal with it. I personally, I think it was such a blow initially that I just was like, I need to focus on something else for a little bit and not try to force something happening when I really don't have any control over it. So, but I'll see. Like I said, I brought home smaller work, and that might change, become a whole different direction for all I know. Like this is going to be, it's going to be interesting, and I have focused a little bit more on some other things that hadn't had time to focus on, that needed some attention. I have a lawsuit pending that now I was able to spend some time looking at and investigate more on, because it was with this gallerist in another state, and she basically copied my work, and so this was yeah.
That's unbelievable.
But because of this time that I've had, I found more artists that she had done this to. So it's actually bolstered the case, and that's actually what the girls are doing the documentary on is talking about these issues and how they affect artists. So maybe what will happen for us in this little house will be to come up with something that's helpful, completely different than what I was doing in my studio, but something that might be helpful to other artists going forward, and how to protect your work, how to protect yourself from these sorts of things happening. And so that's not insignificant. Maybe it's not what I do typically, but it's a project, and it's actually been very helpful to have something that that I can focus on that isn't that's interesting actually, and we'll see how it goes.
Is there anything, you're talking about that, is there anything like the public can do to help artists or support artists, or is there any kind of foundation that is working with local artists?
So there's a fund, so you can go ahead and support. They have an emergency fund for artists. I believe that that artists can request, I think it's $500, going towards rent, going towards all the various things that they might need. I think that that's the only one that I know of in this. But so that's Greater Pittsburgh Arts Council. I always say, if you're in the position to continue sort of the way of living that you were doing before, reach out to an artist, see if they can work on a commission for you during this time. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe buy prints if that's something. And I know a lot of artists, especially in Pittsburgh, do have options other than just original art. They have print options. And while you might not be able to mail it right now, you can get it down the line. So I think, just reminding yourself that there is this whole other community of people that, usually operates very silently and isolated. Which is interesting when you think about like the situation we're in now. It's not very different from what I'm used to. But if it's just, I guess it's important to remember that there is this creative community, and that their livelihoods have essentially just been halted.
Right.
Well, please keep painting and showing everyone what you're doing, even the small pieces. Please just live stream it so all of us can just take it all in. I love your art so much. I do.
Thank you.
I think one of the best times was bringing Anita out to see your studio. I think she talked about that for like a month and a half. So it was
Awesome.
it's just amazing. You're really incredible, and we just respect you and love you so much. And we just hope that everything comes back and with huge gusto. At the back half of the year, everything just opens up and is exciting again. But please, if you, I think what you do just brings everybody so much joy. So
Thank you.
It absolutely does.
and thank you. Thanks for what you do and for your art. I mean, it's just so amazing. I love it. I'm a huge fan. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today too. Seriously, really appreciate it.
It's awesome. I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to see the documentary from the girls.
I know.
That's awesome.
Me either.
I think that's awesome. If they want to talk, we'll talk to them.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they would. So
Thank you, Mia.
Thank you.
bye.
Talk to you later.